taxi, but they put the car on the lift. And here's Del said, my job was to stand there and yell at him not to step out of the car.
I bet it's my turn to drive, so I was taking a nap, don't you?
What would be your favorite, your personal favorite story, and maybe I'm nailing it a little too hard, personal favorite story of something that happened with you and Bill Monroe? I know there's a million different stories, but...
I gotta tell one. I just thought of this morning, Bill, Keith, that we went in, you can tell one then, but we went in a restaurant, you know, and I'd never really went in restaurants that much. You know, I was raised on a farm, and Mama, she always cooked, and we just didn't go nowhere much. Went to church on Sunday morning, and that was about it, you know. But anyway, I never been in any, it seemed like a fine restaurant they took us into, Bill and Bessie I'm talking about. So we sat down at this table, which was, and I'm sure we were tired from driving and staying up, and we sat down at this table, which was like right next to, say, the curtains in the window, you know, and Bill Keith was sitting there at that curtain. And it was kind of a round table. And we ordered salad, and Bill, you remember that?
Yeah.
Bill, he was talking, and he thought, well, I'll shake this salad up, you know, make sure it's
I was
shook up.
shaking it.
He was holding it like this, shaking and talking, and the lid was just sitting on there, and it flew off, and the salad dressing was going all over the curtain.
All over me, too. I had a line of salad dressing right now.
And so, oh, that tickled me to death. And you know, if you're
I
tired,
couldn't stop. He was laughing
I
so
was
loud.
laughing. I knew that I shouldn't do this because Bill, he's just stone-faced there, you know. And that's what made it even funnier. And I thought, I've got to go to the bathroom and get away from it. So I got up and I went to the bathroom and stayed in there till I kind of got composed a little bit and started back to the table and got almost there and I just busted out. And I don't know if I ever did eat. I don't know if I ever did eat.
You know, that might have been, do you remember, that might have been the night, but there was once or twice I remember, it was down in Georgia, we were playing and there was some strange sound that came into his mandolin.
Yes.
This real high note kind of came in. And it was, I think it was a string catching under the edge of end of a fret or something.
Yeah.
But he talked about it like it was the magic tone that came into his mandolin every now and then. And we heard it, and it was real. I mean, it moved around like, and it was very eerie and strange.
A lot like Bill Monroe. No, he's a great guy, you know, he's had so much talent, you know.
How about you, Richie? Do you have a favorite story of Bill's?
It's funny. Bill would sit around and talk to me about his early life, you know, and I didn't really know him that well. We'd sit in, at the 47, we sit in that little back room there, which was the green room, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It was probably about as big as if you kind of cut a line over there. That was it, you know. So sometimes there's a whole band in there rehearsing or something. I'd sit there with Bill, and he'd tell me, he said, you know, there's this colored man out there, and I used to play with him, you know, and we played the fiddle, you know, his name was Arnold Schultz, you know, he played the guitar, you know. And he tried to tell me a little bit about his life and about, you know, relate to me. Because, you know, I mean, I guess I'm an oddity among, you know, bluegrass players, and he would kind of try to relate things about me and play tunes for me. And then I would remember, you know, when I started wanting to really try to admit that I really wanted to play the mandolin, and he was showing me something on the mandolin. He said, you know, you ought to get a mandolin like this, you know, to do a whole lot for your playing, you know. So I got it. The next year I went out and I went to the bank and got a loan and I paid $1,100 for F5, you know. I bought it from Harry West. You know, so I met Bill down at the Philadelphia Folk Festival down there. And Bill was going to come on, and so there were people. I think I met Tom Morgan down there playing. This is 1969. This is the same year I was going. You know, that September I'd be going to dental school, so that was going to put a big cramp on my music playing activities. And we sat down, I sat down with Bill and I was asking him, how do you get that tone out of your mandolin? How do you get that open string sound? And so he asked me to play something, and I played Salt Creek, and it had notes in it. He played it for me, and it had a lot less notes in it, and it just sounded way better than mine. And learning that, and then Bill started. And there's one little story, because Bill liked baseball, and he was, so a lot of things were baseball analogies. So we're sitting down there, and he said, you got to use your little finger. You got to get that out like a shortstop going after a ground ball. I just remember that. It was just such a great little thing. But there was always, and after that, he would come on shows, and he'd call me up to play with him. So get to play with him on stage.
Well, it's been an incredible session, number 2 of Bill Monroe for Breakfast. There will be another one tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock right here. Some final thoughts. We'll start with Del. A little final thought, if you would, sir.
About Bill Monroe?
Yes, sir.
Well,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
he, I think, in the end, Bill Monroe was bashful. I really think he was. But there's not many people that can be in the Bluegrass Hall of Fame and the Country Music Hall of Fame and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So he had something, he really had something special, and of course we all knew that. The first time I saw Bill Monroe was 1950, and he was playing, I would have been 11, and he was playing on top of a concession stand at a drive-in theater. That's where he was.
Wow.
And I could never remember the guitar player's name, but people told me later it was Jimmy Martin.
Wow.
And but I remembered the fiddle player's name. His name was Joe Meadows.
Yeah.
And so I asked a lot of people, I said, Joe Meadows ever play? I never asked Bill Monroe, but I asked other people, and they said, no, he never did play with Bill Monroe. He played with the Stanley Brothers, And so eventually, Joe got a job up there driving for the Democratic leader up there in D.C., I forget his name, from West Virginia.
Oh, Bird.
Yeah, Bird. He was his chauffeur and all like that. And so I said to Joe one day, I said, Joe, did you ever play for Bill Monroe? Yes, in the summer of 1950. So I was right. I remember that name because it's unusual, And Bessie Lee was on the bass, and Joe Stewart was playing comedy and banjo. That was the first time I saw Bill. Of course, I'd heard him on the Grand Ole Opry. My dad and my older brother always listened to the Grand Ole Opry, and funny thing, I wanted to go see Bill because I knew he was at this old drive-in theater there. So my sister was going to go see a movie. She wasn't worried about Bill Monroe, and I begged her to go with her to the movie, because I guess she's going to meet a date there. I don't know. And that's where I saw him, on top of the concession.
I was just going to say to you that you played with Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys. Now, 40 years later, you are a member of the Grand Ole Opry in your own right, and I think that's something to cheer about.
Well, thank you.
Final words from Brad, Bill, Brad.
Well, yeah, Bill, I think you're right. In many ways, Bill was a self-effacing, bashful person, and I've heard yesterday some of the people were asked, how did he teach you, and or did he show you what to play or what not to play? And I think he never really articulated it in words, but he would play by example. And if you heard him working on something, it was probably something that you ought to be working on too. And I remember we were down in East Point, Georgia once, and I'd heard him playing Roanoke, and so I worked up a break for it. And the banjo player had never played a break on that tune, but I asked him, if we're going to play Roanoke tonight, can you give me a break? And he did, and I never saw a bigger smile, I think, on his face, and call that tune a little more often after that. It's impossible in this short time to touch on the, everything that we went through and
Yeah, it is.
and the importance of those things too. I mean, but you were in the presence of greatness, and you wanted it just to rub off,
Yeah, and you're right. He taught by example, I think. He never did tell us what to do. But after years later, I got to thinking, he kind of played and sang to whoever was with him also. He was a band leader, but still, he sang to Lester Flack's lead, and he played to Earl Scruggs' banjo in those days, and then later to you, and he sang to me. Here all the time, I'm trying to sing to Bill, and I think he was singing to me now that I think about it, because he was a tenor singer, and a lot of the songs that he recorded, he sang the verses to, but later on I found out he read them off a piece of paper, and he never did learn them, so the lead singers usually had to sing the verses to a lot of the songs. Now he always had his certain numbers he did every night. He did Blue Moon of Kentucky and Traced Her Little Footprints in the Snow. He did, what was the Mule Skinner Blues, that was always it. And he always did it. He always did that Mule Skinner Blues exactly the same way every night, didn't he? Had that little thing he do with the mandolin on one verse. Da-da-da-da. At the end of the verse,
Richie, do you have a parting word for us?
Yeah, I'd say that playing bluegrass, meeting Bill Monroe, that's a powerful statement in your life. You kind of think of it because a lot of people think of bluegrass as hokey and kind of jokey, and you kind of talk to, you talk to other people about Bill's playing, but Bill was very serious about his music, and he wanted you to be serious about it if you were. And it kind of also gave me an example for life, be serious about what you're doing, and just translate that into, really work at it and be serious about what you're doing, and at some degree you have to take yourself seriously, Bill took himself seriously, he wasn't a jokester or anything on stage, he would get up there and play his music and he'd say, hey, this is me, this is my music. And you kind of thought about that, that's a good example for life, you can, you be yourself, and that was I thought that was a pretty good takeaway from bluegrass. A lot of things happened to me that maybe if I didn't play bluegrass, man, it wouldn't have been my life. So that's a good thing.
Listen, Richie, if it wasn't for Bill Monroe, none of us would have known each other ever.
That could be true.
One man has meant so much to all of us. He's totally reformed our lives. And I want to thank Richie Brown, Bill Keith, and Bill McCoury to being with us today. Give them a round of applause. And I would like to invite everybody to come down to the keynote address in room 103, 104 at 9:15. You got about 8 minutes. Again, the keynote address at 9:15 in room 103, 104.